Hello, everybody, and welcome to Paranormal Nation Radio. Not so normal, your regular Tuesday night show. How's Denise and Rudy doing?
We're doing good. I just had to go. Well, we all know it's last minute Leah. She called me about 4:30 and said, "Hey, Mom, can you come get him?"
Hey, Mom, can you come get him?
And I have an echo tonight.
That's right.
So, but yeah, he had a good day. Daddy's actually on vacation from his regular job, so the rest of the week should be more quiet for me. So, but other than that, I've been working on the separation of CenturyLink from Lumen and just being busy. And of course, we also got the people tearing up our backyard. And we actually had a gas main break today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they came and asked me to leave for a little bit, but they got it all back up pretty quick. But, we live by the pipeline. So I didn't know if it was what I was smelling was my yard or down the street at Eastern Panhandle Pipeline.
Right.
So I don't know. It is what it is, So, but otherwise, it's a good day. I think I'm finally starting to get on the other side of the COVID and the pneumonia.
Good.
I actually sound better to myself.
Yeah, you do. And your color's coming back in you.
Oh, well, maybe not. Maybe once I turn the lights on.
Oh, now she's
maybe not so
good. There you go. But
I look good in the dark. Who'd you think?
Right.
Don't all of us paranormal investigators look better in the dark?
Yeah. So you getting all ready for this weekend?
Yep. Ron said, he goes, I didn't know that we were both billed to speak. And I said, yeah. And he goes, what am I going to talk about? I said, hell if I know. I said, you might as well just go with whatever topic I pick.
Hey, tell Ron to talk about Echo Bucks. He knows a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, and what it says and stories that go with it.
I don't know. I mean, I know we have about 45 minutes to speak, and I know I'm not going to take up a whole 45 minutes. So, no. But yeah, I never dreamt we'd be first. But that tells you.
I didn't either until I seen the schedule pop up on Facebook, and I went, "Oh."
I know why we're first, because no one will be there.
Yeah, that's what you'll think, but guess what? We'll probably have 100 people there.
Well, when they hear the topic, maybe. Sometimes they want to know how to spot a fake medium.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of them out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, tonight I brought us a guest that hopefully you met when you were in Lexington, Tim Miley.
Yes, I did.
And he has been on the Paranormal Pride, I don't know how many times. And he was very well respected by a good friend of ours, Rick Rose,
right.
And who we talk about every chance we get a chance to bring his name up, we do.
Yes, we do.
Rick respected him because of his work with potographs and how he gives his time at paranormal conferences, especially to the animals that need our help. And
right.
And he has this wonderful story. It's a sad story that turned out great because Tim's still here, but his story about Murray. And I'd like for all of you to meet Tim Miley.
Hey, Tim.
So, how you doing?
Fine. Now you get to see me for a change as opposed to just hearing my voice. But yeah, you were here in town back when I had COVID, so I couldn't come up and see you. So this is the next best thing. So can you tell everybody your story? Because like I said, it is a sad story with a happy ending.
Yes, it is.
Well, I guess I can go ahead and tell it.
Yeah.
I in 2006, I bought the home that I'm still in. And I was 31 years old and never dealt with anything paranormal. Up until that point, in our family, religion was a big thing. on my dad's side of the family, and for the family, it meant that there was no need to talk about ghosts. When you passed, you either went to heaven or you went to hell, and there was no reason to even discuss it. So it wasn't even something that was brought up as I was growing up, and certainly not into my young adulthood. At 31 years old, I bought this house. And I was going through a lot of stuff personally, and dealing with a lot of dark places in my life and in my mind. And like I said, moved into the house and had all these things happening. Knocks on the wall, voices in my closet, and then also footsteps from bedroom to bedroom. And I remember the first thing I did was I called my mom, and she famously told me to go and look what it was. And I said some words to my mom that I won't repeat here because I don't want to get you kicked off of Facebook. But to those that know my mother, they know she's a chicken, and she would have never went and looked at this either. And at the time, I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know what I was dealing with, and that was the end of it. But it kept happening for a few weeks, and eventually, I'd promised myself when I moved into this house that I wanted to get a dog. It was my first opportunity to get a dog. I'd lived in apartment buildings, couldn't really have one there up until I moved in here, and looked online, found what would end up being Murray. Was a pit lab mix. And the story of him was he was beaten badly as a puppy and rescued from the home by the shelter. They didn't want to let me come and visit him because it was a man that did this to him, and he didn't seem to like men, didn't trust men. And I said, I'm no normal man. So they let me come and visit. And I remember going there, and they let him out of the kennel, and he went the wrong way. And if anybody ever met Murray, that was what he did. He never did anything right the first time. Really took after Dad in that respect. But they turned him around, and he saw me, and I was on a knee calling for him. And this little puppy, 6-month-old puppy that was supposed to want nothing to do with me, came running to me and jumped into my arms. And that was the very beginning of a wonderful, beautiful story. Brought him home. I think what ended up being almost 2 weeks later. They were very horrible in how long they made me wait and how long they kept him in the shelter. But I'm just thankful that I did end up getting him. And I remember bringing him home, and the first thing was he was afraid of stairs, and he didn't want to come in the house. Got him in the house, and he instantly started following the things that I had been hearing. And for the first time in weeks, I felt sane. There was always this in the back of my mind, am I going crazy? Because it hadn't happened to anybody else. Up until this point, it hadn't happened in my life. And here I am dealing with all these things that I would learn to find out were paranormal. I found that out from watching wrestling on Sci-Fi, and they had a commercial for ghost hunters. And I started watching ghost hunters. That was my first dive into the worlds of the paranormal. And I was hooked. And they started talking about team members and TAPS family teams in the area. And I did some checking, and I contacted 4 teams in the area, and none of them got back to me, which caused me to, over the next year plus, educate myself. And it wasn't because I wanted to start a team. It was because I needed to stay in my home. It was a 30-year mortgage, and I couldn't afford to leave.
I know about that.
Eventually, it turned into a labor of love and a passion. And really, one day I just looked in the mirror and I said, if there's families out there that aren't getting answers to their emails, then there should be a team out there that'll help them. And that's how Fox City's paranormal team started, which really, without that, I'm not sure Potographs exists. I'm not sure I know I'm not at these events, and I don't have this opportunity. But that's how Fox City's paranormal team started. The Potographs for Pooches is a much sadder story. And it was a few months later. And honestly, I don't remember when. I just know it was in early 2007. And that's probably my brain trying to protect myself, because I think it would just eat at me if I knew the day. But I sat in my bathroom with the longest knife I had, the biggest knife I had in the house. And I went through each family member and each friend, and I made an excuse as to why it would be better for them if I wasn't here. The depression got the best of me, the anxiety, everything just built up, and there I sat. And as I was about to do the unthinkable, I felt something on my arm. And I looked down, and it was Murray, and he'd rested his head on my arm, and he was looking up at me with these beautiful brown eyes. And it snapped me out of it. And I firmly believe that night he saved my life. If he had not walked into that room, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't get to do the wonderful things I get to do. And I lived every day to thank him. From that point forward, we were father and son. And everything I did, I thanked him. I would pick up his ear every day and whisper thank you into his ear. And he was the greatest dog in the world. Very rarely would I call him a dog. But eventually I started getting opportunities to speak at paranormal conferences through some of our work, and we ended up on Paranormal Witness for an episode. And doors started to open, and you go to these events, and they give you a table, and they want you to sell what you have. I didn't have anything. And that was fine with me. I thought, if I'm going to get more opportunities like this, then I should take advantage of it. And we started Potographs for Pooches April 18th, 2013. And really what it came down to was creating a legacy for Murray and trying to raise money for shelters around the country. And I didn't know what we were going to raise. I had no expectations. And in the beginning, it was just photos of me and Murray. And he would potograph them. That's where Potographs comes from. Usually I have the stamp right here. I don't know there it is. That's still his stamp, where he would potograph all of the pictures, and I would personalize them, and we'd sell them for $10. And the first event we raised $10, and it's humbling. But I also knew that it was just the beginning, and eventually some of the events that I was at, they got behind it and they advertised Potographs for Pooches, and we would raise $100 here and $200 there. And my good friend John Cassidy came up with the idea of Potographs exclusive events, where all of the money raised from ticket sales would go to a shelter that we chose. And the first time we did that, it was $741, and that was the top of the world. So it was a great feeling. And never dreamed that, in 2019, I think was our event that we first went over 10,000 at one event.
Congratulations.
And then right after COVID, the big COVID sweep, March 2021, we had another event, and we raised $13,000 at one event.
Wow. That is amazing.
And just recently, in September here in Wisconsin, we went over $100,000 raised total in the 9.5 years that we've been doing this. And people ask me all the time, they're like, "How did you feel? What did it feel like?" And I don't know if it's hit me yet. I
guarantee it felt as amazing as that first $10 that you raised.
I imagine at some point I'm going to break down. It hasn't happened yet, though. I came home from that event and I picked up Murray's urn. Murray unfortunately passed away in 2019. But I picked up his urn and I held it and I told him what we did. And still to this day, it's not about me. It never will be. It's about him and his legacy. And his legacy is set. And I take a lot of pride in that. But it doesn't work without the people that come to the events. It doesn't work without the people that speak at the events. And it doesn't work without the paranormal field. Quite honestly, I hear all these awful things said about the paranormal field on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. The paranormal field gave me the platform to do this and has opened up so many doors for me that I want to be the person out there that's an advocate for the field and that just stands up and says, you know what, there's a lot more good in this field than there is bad. And we need to concentrate on that and find that. and I'm proud to be a part of this field, and I'm proud to have this platform. And the people that love ghosts and spirits and Bigfoots and UFOs and aliens, they've all been a part of this $100,000. And like I said, I couldn't be more proud of it. But like I said, at some point it's going to hit me. I imagine I'm going to have a mental breakdown. I think I'm due for one. But one thing I do want to mention, because it kind of ties the story up, is when Murray passed in 2019. I used to talk a lot about my dad. My dad passed when I was very young. And I used to tell Murray all the time, I'm like, when you pass, you need to find Grandpa. And you need to let me know you're okay. That day when I was taking him to the vet, I just kept telling him that. It's like, when you find Grandpa, you need to let me know you're okay. Otherwise, I'm coming to look for you. And that sounds exactly how I meant it. I was at a point where I was afraid for him to be by himself. And in my mind, if I had to go, I was going to go because I wanted to be with my boy. And I told him, I said, you need to let me know that you're okay. Otherwise, I'm coming to look for you. And that next morning, I woke up to messages from 5 mediums. And every message started the same way. It said, Murray needs his dad to know that he's okay.
Well, I knew that when you lost Murray, that you lost a piece of yourself.
It's not only that, it's like for the longest time, like we were synonymous. My name was synonymous with his. I would get introduced on radio interviews as Murray's dad. And that's never been a problem for me. Like I'll be Murray's dad until I can't breathe anymore. And then I'll still be Murray's dad. He was like hand in hand. Like you thought of me, you thought of Murray, and that's what I wanted. I wanted people to think of him, and when he let me know he was okay, then I knew that I had to push forward, and I had to keep my word to him, and here we are, almost 3 years later. It was October 14th, 2019. So we're coming up on a week and a half from 3 years.
The reason I remember is because it's my daughter's birthday. So, and I put it on my calendar so that I could remember it. Important days of my friends are important to me.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So,
I just remember that day and like it was the saddest day of my life. It was a very, very tough day for me. With the outpouring of love, my God, did he make a difference? And he continues to make a difference.
It's because you made a difference.
Right.
I always give the credit to Murray.
I always deflect because it's his story, and I just get to call it.
It's because you're proud, but you're not prideful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's he's still my little dude, and he's with my dad, so that's a great thing. But my Molly passed a year ago, and she was with Murray for about 3 years, I think. No, 1 year. I'm sorry. She was with Murray for a year, and they were best of friends. And the morning after Molly passed, I got a message that said, Murray just wants you to know he has his girl. And it was weird because I didn't really mourn Molly. I mean, I miss her. I miss her terribly. She ended up with kidney disease, and her kidneys were failing. Yeah, I knew, and I wanted to make sure I did right by her. And as soon as I heard that she was with the boy, I just thought, you know what, I can't even be sad because she's where I want to be. She's well taken care of, and when I brought her into the home, I actually got her at an event, and the lady that brought her to the event from the shelter came up to me and said, you can take her home. And I put her in the car, and we drove 7 hours.
Oh.
And just praying that she would get along with Murray, and they honestly were best friends. It was so awesome to see.
Do you need a short break?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I always say that if I don't cry and I don't get choked up when I tell this story, then something is wrong with me.
Well, I'm just glad you're here because I remember right after Rick met you, he posted about you on Facebook, and he called me. Okay, and Rick and I were very close because of he used to live in Leavenworth before he lived in Ohio, and before he lived in South Carolina. He moved everywhere. But he had called me and he said, "Remember that guy Tim you had on your show?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "He loves those dogs. He really does." And I said, "I know." And Rick really loved his dogs and he missed them because when he moved, he had to give them up. And he said, he goes, "I gave money to that." He goes, "I want everybody to be able to give money if they can." And he had said something on Facebook to that as well. But he wanted to talk to me personally about it because he said, "I remembered him from your show and his story." And he goes, "But he spoke at the event." And he goes, "And that's when it triggered me that I had heard his story through your show." And as big as a goofball as he was, he wore his heart on his sleeve. And you touched his heart with your story of Murray saving your life.
I remember him coming up to me at Silicon, coming up to my table, and I always liked my interactions with Rick. If we're being honest with ourselves, sometimes Rick made it really difficult for people to like him.
Yes, he did.
But he came up to my table and asked. I believe we were at we were close to going over $5,000 at that point. I mean, that's how long ago it was. And he came up to the table and he said, "How far are you away from $5,000?" And I told him, I said, "We're $30 short." And he handed me $30 and he said, "Now you've made it." And I gave him a shirt. It was one of the first shirts that we had made. And honestly, just not a very high quality shirt. And gave him that shirt, gave him a hug. He posted a picture with it. And every year that comes up in my memories, and I smile because I did like Rick. A lot of people did not, and
you had to know him to love him.
Yeah, you did.
He came and he worked with us at the Sally House. His car was broke down, and so we would just stop and pick him up in Leavenworth and drive the rest of the way because we live 90 minutes from there, and the bridge was closed going across at the place that we would normally go across. So we would come through Lansing into Leavenworth and take, the little bit longer way to get there. And he just wanted to be there with us. And I actually had somebody that was hilarious. Somebody came up to me and told me that my son was being rude. And I was like, "How old do you think I am?" Or how young do you think Rick is? But yeah, so Rick was one of the first paranormal kids of mine just because somebody thought he was my kid. And I'm like, how old do I look? But I miss his laugh every day. But the one thing I don't miss is sometimes those jokes that make me go, "I can't look at that because it's so totally inappropriate."
That
was Rick, though.
Yeah. Fast forward to the event here in September when we went over 100,000, and I got up to introduce. I got up to announce that we had a 30-minute break before our last speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I had mentioned throughout the day we were getting closer to 100,000. And honestly, I didn't think we'd get there with the ticket sales that we had and things like that. But I had mentioned we were about $500 away. And a good friend of mine, Dinah Good, went into the bar area and grabbed a bucket and started collecting money. And collected $320 in like 10 minutes because people wanted to see us get there. And I remember a lady coming up to me and saying, "Your people made this happen. And don't you dare say you don't have people." I will always, like I said, I'll always deflect to Murray. And those are his people. And I get to hang out with them. But at the end of the day, those are his people. And they made it happen. And we went over that day. And I just remember when we were about to announce, I don't know if you've met Todd or had Todd on the show, but Todd Arnold, the guy who runs Fox City's Paranormal Team with me, we've been doing this now for, 15 years. I remember seeing that he was standing 2 people away from me. And I looked over and I said, before I make this announcement, I need my brother standing next to me. And he came over and we made the announcement that we had gone over $100,000. And then the celebration started. It was a good feeling. Everybody was happy. And the Potographs events are different because everybody has the same goal. You know, everybody there that day wanted to see us go over $100,000. It wasn't about individuals. It was about how much can we raise for this shelter. And that's the beautiful thing about the events that we do. And that's the part that I'm most proud of. But
I think every event should have a charitable goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what makes a lot of these events successful is who are they supporting? Just because we're paranormal and people think we're weird doesn't mean we can't support something. Like our network here is veteran owned and operated, and most of us are either, I think all of us are vets, or I'm the spouse of a vet, you know, my grandfather as well. So I mean, we all have a history of,
and we got
serving.
mothers of veterans and still in the service.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we got a lot of us.
And first responders as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that right there, you know, is important. So if we go to do an event, we would probably stick with something that's veteran related or first responder related. So you have the good news with you is that you've got yours already there. Your name just comes up, and Potographs for Pooches is the first thing that we think of.
Right.
And that's exactly how I want it. You know, I said a few months ago when I was doing an interview, I did an interview and the lady was like, I didn't even know you did paranormal investigation until I read your bio. It's like, I don't really get to talk about that anymore. I was doing this for 15 years now, the paranormal stuff, and 300 plus residential investigations. So, I mean, we have some experience there, and it's definitely still a passion of mine, and I always make time for that. But the event we did in Missouri, I want to say 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, Lexington.
Yeah, I got moved to Richmond, which, I mean, it was the towns are right next to each other, so it didn't really matter much. But I went back to like the old school PowerPoint or talk that I used to do, where I go from like the beginning and tell my story and, you know, talk about my dad, talk about Murray, and then just get into everything and kind of bare my soul. But I did that because it was my first time in that area, and I knew there were a lot of people there that did not know who I was.
Exactly.
And
I was one of them.
And after it was done, I mean, you probably remember this. You know, there was a line of people to give me hugs, and then there was a young lady that was there as a part of a vendor table, and I walked up and she was sobbing,
Mm-hmm.
and I grabbed her and I hugged her, and her name was Holly.
Yeah.
And I asked if I could exchange numbers. I exchanged numbers with her parents, and she sends me texts, you know, 2 or 3 times a week. Checking up on me. I check up on her. I told her that day that was like, we're going to fight through this and we're going to fight for each other. Because I could tell she was hurting. And one of the things that she said to me when I was talking to her was, the things I'm going through are not as important as the things that you went through. And I said, everybody has their story and it's just as important as mine. Mm-hmm. That was part of the response that I don't think I expected. I didn't realize that telling my story would open up these conversations and these dialogues. And I guess maybe I was naive, but I didn't think that people would feel what they feel. And
Well,
there's always somebody that needs to hear the story. And it's pretty apparent who it is, by the end of it. And I was so happy that Holly was there and the folks that were there were a part of it. And it was an honor to speak there.
Well, like I said, I was down there helping Katie Stafford on that table back behind. And I walked by your table 2 or 3 times and I'm looking and going, Pets for Paws and a Paranormal. I didn't know exactly what was going on. Then when you got up to speak that story, that was something else. I mean, I watched the whole audience. They were glued to you and your story.
It's weird because usually I like to speak pretty early in an event for that reason. You walk past the table, you see photos of a guy and his dog, and you think, "Oh, that's cute." But until you know the story,
exactly what I thought. I was like, "What? What's going on here?"
Yeah. Until you know the story, it's difficult to really get behind it. And I mean, it was the response was incredible, and we raised $530 that day at a relatively small event.
Oh yeah, it was small because when it got transferred from Lexington to Richmond, they didn't have any signs out telling anybody the paranormal.
Yeah, they didn't say go that away. They didn't say anything.
No. It got double booked over in Lexington is what happened. And that was when I found that out, I was like, why didn't you guys have signs uptown saying the paranormal convention deal is right here in town?
If they had at least a little notice, they could have done that. So
I think in the end of the day, they did what they could. They made it fun for the people that did show up. And like I said earlier, the first event I did, we raised $10, and then there'd be events where we'd raise $100. So, when we were able to raise $530, and I got to give credit to the kids, Abby and her friends, they heard the story in February at an event I did in Illinois, and she wanted to do something to help. So she offered to do Kids for Murray, and we had sweatshirts for Kids for Murray. They ran a raffle, and they raised $350 of that $530. So,
oh yeah, they was walking around with them tickets in the bucket like crazy, outside, inside.
Yeah, they did a wonderful job, and I have a soft spot in my heart for Abby. She's an awesome little girl. So it was just a great event overall, and honestly, I don't have another event this year, which is a little weird for me.
Well, they're announcing some right now for later on in the year, so don't be surprised if we find out that you're going somewhere.
I honestly, I'm okay with it. I like to travel, but this year I booked myself 4 out of 5 weeks in August and September, and by the 5th week in Missouri, I don't know if you could tell or not, but I was absolutely exhausted. And I just wanted to get home.
I'm just grateful I didn't book myself for anything after getting COVID. And then, well, I've had a hell of a summer. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Hell of a summer. And I'm looking forward to this weekend actually getting away without any kids. And I'm an empty nester. Supposed to be. So I'm a full nested grandma.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we're going down to somebody else that you met over the weekend, David Glidden. We're going down to the event down there, Haunting History Paracon in Joplin. And I'll be speaking at that along with I guess my husband will sit there next to me.
Oh, he'll say something.
Yeah, he'll probably say, she's full of shit. Don't listen to her. and I'm not. Just because I have a BS doesn't mean it's in what he thinks it's in.
Oh, I can get him talking. All I got to do is talk a little politics, and he'll get going up on that stage.
No politics at a paranormal conference. Because I'll tell you, I just know that politics and paranormal don't mix.
I know, but if I said it, Ron would go off on it.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that that Dara and Caitlin can show up at the conference. And I know Cassie's going to be there. And I hope that Barbara's son and daughter-in-law can come down.
I don't think they're going to make it because they can't find anybody to watch the kids.
They could bring
And
the
they
kids.
can bring the kids. That's what I told Barbara.
Yeah, they can bring the kids. It's not a big deal.
No.
You know, if you just want to come and meet us and not come in, we can come outside and see you
We
too.
can come outside. We can hook up with you later or whatever.
Yeah. So, but yep, Dara's
They
coming.
are coming with Derek. Oh, finally get to meet Derek.
Hopefully he's feeling better from his COVID as well.
Yeah.
So,
You sent
There's
Joanna the info. Okay. Great, Barbara.
you've never been down to Joplin, but you do remember meeting David Glidden, I assume.
Yep.
He's memorable. He's my other paranormal son.
He met
and
Charles
Charlie.
too. Was there?
And Charlie. Yeah. Everybody calls him Charles. I call him Charlie. I've been calling him Charlie since he was a kid, I guess. He was the best man at my daughter's wedding.
Okay.
So, needless to say, we've got a family connection here. And Charlie went to school with my daughter-in-law. So, it's one of those weird things that we're in the paranormal together, doing things together, but I know him from my daughter-in-law.
That's strange because I met Charles before I met Denise on a paranormal team and stuff. And it just went around in a circle. We'll put it that way.
I'm making sure all my friends meet all my friends is what I'm doing. That's why you're here tonight, Tim. So all my friends can meet all my friends.
Hello, your friends.
So, and where do you live in Wisconsin? Because my cousin April is here in the chat, and she lives in Wisconsin in a place called Little Chicago.
God, I have no idea where that is.
It's a teeny tiny town near Wausau.
Oh, okay. I live in Oshkosh, so we're not too far away.
Is there some good place that she could go to for her first paranormal investigation outside of her own home?
She is in luck. I said I didn't have any Potographs events left, but this Friday and Saturday I am at the Four Seasons Island Resort in Pembine, Wisconsin, doing tours and investigations.
Okay, there you go, April.
There you go, April.
Yeah, if you want to come out and meet us and investigate with us a little bit. And then rumor has it afterwards, we're all getting together at the bar at the hotel and we're having some drinks and talking ghosts. So
spirits and spirits. That's all.
So if you want to just send me a message on Facebook, I'll get you all the information. And if she's interested in going, that's great. If she's not, that's
Well,
fine.
if you see a woman show up and she's got 7 boys in different sizes, that'll be
Yeah, my family. It's very large.
yes.
And it's interesting keeping track of all the different people in my family.
Now, did you get to investigate the old museum when you was down there in Richmond?
I did. I investigated the first rotation, and I've been dealing with an issue with my foot for 4 months. I've got a pretty nasty ulcer on the bottom of my foot.
Oh.
And normally I can't feel it. But that night after the first rotation, I had to sit down because I knew something was wrong. And I took the rest of the night off, went back to the hotel room, and it was just mangled.
Oh.
So I didn't get to do as much investigating as I wanted to. Went to the doctor this week, and the doctor said, we're back at square one. It was healing very nicely, and I pushed it too much. And now I'm back to probably 3 more months of this. But I walk around with a boot, and I'm sure at some point they're going to put me back in a cast.
Well, the main thing is when you're doing this stuff this weekend, sit down as much as you can.
Oh, I plan on it. But we're going to enjoy this weekend. It's a great opportunity for us to meet people within our area. This event has nothing to do with Potographs. It's just us going up there and helping out the location. And then next year in March, they're going to let us do a Potographs event there for free.
So, well, congratulations. That's excellent because that means everything pretty much goes towards.
Yep. We scratched their back, they're scratching mine. And next March, we'll have another Potographs event in Wisconsin. And
Wouldn't it be better if they if you scratch their belly and they scratch yours like dogs like?
I've met them and I don't want to touch their belly.
Right. Well, let's see. What was it? 2 years ago, we helped with an event raising money to collect for dogs and cats that people couldn't afford to take them into treatment that would pay. And we set a goal of $1,500 in our small community. It was a live event and everything. And they got to $1,000. But we did raise $1,500 because my co-host on the Second Amendment Ranch put out an offer that he would sit down live and eat a cup full of dry dog food. And somebody paid $500 to watch him eat a bowl of dog food.
That's somebody with way too much money.
Yeah, but the funny part about it, he started eating that dog food and he goes, "Oh no, I got to switch my dogs around. They can't eat this crap." It made him about sick. He goes, "This is the nastiest stuff," and it was the high dollar stuff.
Yeah,
that he got. He goes, "Oh no."
Beneful looks decent.
Yeah, he got it all 8. He did go throw up a couple of times, but he got it 8. But we did raise the $1,500, so people that didn't have the money could take their animal to get checked out, get spayed, neutered, whatever it needed to be.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hey, Dara. Now that you're working at Bass Pro, you can play with the turtles. They might bite you, but they're still animals. So, but yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, she got a job at the Bass Pro Shop, the original Bass Pro Shop in Springfield, Missouri.
Yep.
So, if you ever get down there, check it out. It's one of the nicer Bass Pro Shops.
It is.
The other one that's really nice, speaking of Bass Pro, is the one hooked to the Silverton Casino in Las Vegas. It's the only one in that area. We explore it every time we went to Vegas. So it was one of those fun things. But so you got that event, and we've talked about potographs, and you've talked about kind of how you got involved in the paranormal because you bought the house that you're in. Did you ever have paranormal experiences that you didn't realize were paranormal experiences before you bought that house?
I may have. I just don't ever remember because I didn't pay any attention to it.
Okay.
So it ended up the spirit in my home ended up being my dad, and I would not find that out until, 5 years after I moved in here, and I met Scotty Rorick, and he basically, the first time I met him, told me something that nobody else would know, and I knew it was from my father. Very, very personal information. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm fine with Dad being here. I want him to be here. But I don't remember ever noticing. But I can't imagine that Dad just started trying to get my attention in 2006.
Well, maybe it's because you bought a house, you became your dad. The commercial says, all these people buy new houses and they become their parents. Maybe that's it. You just started paying attention because you had a house and it was yours and things were different than they were before.
Yeah. If I become just like him, I'd be pretty happy with that. He left when I was, he didn't leave. He was in an accident when I was 8 years old and would end up being in a coma for 6.5 and then passed away. So I lost him at 8 years old. So I didn't really get a whole lot of time with him. The memories I have are of a really little boy and his dad. And when I think of him now, I still think of him through the eyes of an 8-year-old.
I still think of my dad through the eyes of a 10-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
So, because my dad was murdered when I was 10. So, my dad never aged beyond the age of 29 to me.
Yeah. I remember the day my dad got hit by the truck. I got to do quick math in my head. He was 28 years old in 2 days.
So you're in the same boat I am, losing
So
your parent at basically the same age.
Yeah. So I honestly, that the day I turned 28 was a big deal for me. I kind of had survivor's guilt at that point. And then my dad passed away when he was 34, 34 and a half. And I remember that day coming along and me just, I felt guilty, outliving him. And that was before any of, this stuff, really, I mean, I had the experience, but I didn't know it was him at that point.
Yeah.
But at 34 years old, and I was just a baby in the paranormal, and now I'm the old man who wants everybody to get off his lawn. I do have a paranormal. Huh?
Me too. At this point, I want all these people out of my yard. They've been in my yard for 4 months now, tearing it up.
I do have a paranormal investigation the following weekend after our event at Four Seasons. Basically, now we do investigations whenever somebody contacts us. If somebody needs help in their home, we'll be there. But
you said you've done like 300 residentials.
Yes, and a lot of times there's a lot of pressure. I mean, in that 300, I mean, we're talking multiple visits to the same house.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 300 separate investigations. It's,
right.
You're talking at least 2 or 3 trips to a home, to make sure you have a good understanding of what is happening and what isn't happening. I remember when we first started in 2008, we would have 20, 25 investigations a year. And then, that happened for, the first 3 or 4 years that I did this. And it's slowed down this year. We'll probably end up with 7 or 8 this year if we have another 1 or 2. But like I said, I don't really go out looking for it because I'm pretty busy the way it is. But if they need help, they know they can still come to us, and we'll make the time. But life is busy, but I'm not complaining.
Right.
But I do enjoy my downtime.
What kind of equipment do you use on your investigations?
I am very simple. I bought a REM pod just for the event that we're doing this weekend because I wanted people to have something to look at. But I'm a recorder, I'm an IR cam, and an EMF meter kind of guy, and then my brain. That's always the way I've been, and really the biggest reason for that is I don't want to get stuck looking at a blinking light and miss something that happens in front of my face.
Right.
That's always been my thought process. We will use ghost boxes. I don't typically use them on residential investigations, though, because it's really hard to explain to a client that not every voice you're hearing there is a spirit.
Right. And just because it sounds like a male doesn't mean it's a male.
Right. If it sounds like a guy, it may not be a guy. A grown-up could be a kid could be a grown-up. You don't know.
Yeah. So we keep it simple, and it's worked for us. And the only promise I ever make the family that we are working with is that we're going to do our best. That's all I can promise. I mean, there's no results that you can guarantee in this field. And
no.
And like I said, the only thing we can guarantee is that you're going to get our best, and we're going to care about you. And that goes a long way for people in gaining trust.
Have you ever went to a house, investigated, and debunked everything?
Oh, it's too many to remember.
Okay. That's good because a lot of investigators won't tell you that stuff.
Yeah.
They'll make sure that it's paranormal or it's a demon or something. Yeah.
They'll read the people. The people are wanting something to be said. So they'll say, oh, yeah, you got one here. You got one there.
Honestly, if we leave the home and they feel better than when we got there, that's a win for me. I don't need the experience. I don't need the 1 in a million audio clip, even though we've had a few. But if I can explain things that are happening in the home and they feel better about that, then it was worth my time.
Oh yeah.
I've never left a place thinking, man, I wasted my weekend.
Right.
Even if there isn't anything there, as long as you have a client that will listen to you, and take what you have to say and really give it some thought. We've had a few clients that desperately want a ghost, and when you can't deliver that for them, they call you names. But
And they call another team that will.
Yeah, and there's always going to be a team that'll come in and tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be that team. So
I don't either. And I'm right there with you. We've got to, if you're not honest, what integrity is there in the paranormal field if you're going to not be honest?
I used to say this all the time about the paranormal field, but it really applies to life. I mean, if you lose your integrity, you don't have anything left. I mean, once you lose that, what's the point?
Yep.
And there's quite a few people that don't have a problem with that. And
I do.
I've never been able to be one of those people. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing and helping as many families as we can. And, if there's not anything there and we don't think there's something there, we're going to tell you. The other side of that is we're in a home for 6 or 7 hours, and we've all been in places that have gone quiet for 6 or 7 hours.
Oh, yeah.
So I never really look at a family and go, there's nothing here.
No.
What I say is we didn't experience what you experienced, but we were only here for 6 or 7 hours. So let's keep that in mind. And there's been times where we didn't experience anything and we've gone back to the home 3 times, just because we want to make sure that we're doing our very best for them.
So whatever's there is on its best behavior when you're there.
When you're there.
Yeah.
Or they go out to eat at that point.
It took me probably 3 or 4 years before I realized that, we don't need to sit down and ask question after question after question and interrogate the spirit that's there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we just sit in a room and we talk to them like they're in the room with us.
Right.
And, I mean, my favorite question to ask on any investigation, at some point you'll hear me say, I've heard all these stories about you and what people say you've done, but I want to hear it from you. Can you tell me your story? And to this day, haven't had a spirit that's come through and said, well, let me tell you this paragraph about myself.
Right.
But it seems to open up the line of communication. And we have better results when we just talk to them like they're people, because they are. At one point they were people. They had families, they had hobbies, they had hopes and dreams. And why not talk to them like that?
Yeah, you talk to them just like you walked into their house.
Yes.
Is how you do it. The same way if they walked into this house. You talk to them that way.
That's the best way to go. Conversationally speaking, if we know that we've gotten a lot more activity sitting around the table and talking to each other.
Yeah.
Than sometimes you get when you're actively investigating. They want to come in and butt into our conversation.
Right. And they get upset if you don't recognize them when you're sitting there talking to all your friends and everything around there. They're like, come up, you get scratched. You'll get pushed while you're sitting there talking, going, okay, they're wanting to talk now.
Well,
I don't recognize that at all.
I'm glad you brought up the scratching and the pushing. People get really weird about that stuff and they automatically think it's negative, but we don't know how long they've been trying to make contact. We don't know what kind of energy it takes for them to do that. Mm-hmm. So they may be trying to get your attention and doing this, and then all of a sudden they get you and there's a breakthrough and for some reason they scratch you. And I don't think it's always a bad thing.
I don't either. I got scratched at a graveyard down in Cherryvale, Kansas. It was just right here on my neck. And I mean, it just went straight down. And Ron goes, well, how did you feel? I said, I didn't feel scared. So I said, I just think that they're trying to get my attention. And he goes and he looks and he goes, well, there's 3 marks. And I said, I don't care if there's 10.
Yeah.
3 does not mean squat. That's just what they say it means. I don't see that. And I told him, I said, I just feel like somebody was trying to get my attention. So I stopped where we were. And we investigated right there where I got scratched at. And we got some stuff. He got some stuff on the echo box that matched up with what I said, that it was just something trying to get our attention. Mm-hmm. And because this place had never been investigated before, they it's like finally somebody to talk to, you know, because when people go to visit graves, they're not necessarily going to listen. They're going to talk, you know, talk to their dead. You know, they're not really listening to their dead at that time. At least that's been my experience of what I've seen.
Well, that's just like there at the museum down there in Richmond the weekend before. There's always been the story of the girl in there that was deaf and mute that lived there and died at the poor farm, the museum, and stuff. And the weekend before, some paranormal investigators were in there that we know, and they were doing sign language. And they got information, we'll put it that way, back from this spirit. Maybe that's the first time in 100 years that spirit finally went, oh, somebody can talk to me now, because they were doing the sign language. That's all she knew.
But she should have been able to read lips.
She should had, but it makes you wonder.
It does. A friend of mine used to own a haunted house in Richmond, Missouri. And she used to drive to work from Richmond, Missouri to Gardner, Kansas. Yeah. Okay. 95 minutes.
Yeah.
On a good day to work. So I never made it up there to see her house, but she would send me pictures all the time of all the paranormal activity that she had in her house. So I'm glad you got to go up there and got to see stuff I haven't been able to see. But
it's a beautiful museum, and if I was in the area, I would be there more than the one time. But
what's funny is you met all these people that I know that I didn't get to see, and so I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous that they got to meet you and I didn't get to, you know. But it is what it is. It wouldn't have been the best idea for me to come out that weekend. I think I had pneumonia. I was still recovering from pneumonia. So
yeah, you were.
Yeah.
And this that event also connected with the other event they had in Kansas City for the UFOs.
Oh, the MUFON.
Yeah,
stuff.
They had it the same day.
Yeah, and then up north, the other event was the Van Meter Festival. Maybe someday you'll go to that. The Van Meter Festival is pretty interesting as well. If you ever get a chance to go there, they'll give you a tour of where the Van Meter monster made its appearance for 3 days during, was it between 1908 and 1912. And it's not that far. It's about an hour and a half from Villisca. Right. And about an hour and a half from Malvern, depending upon which way you go. We did the Van Meter Festival back in 2019. And it was a free event, and we had a good time. Talk about small. But how many people have I had on from that? Almost everybody except for Linda Godfrey. Yeah, that's it. Everybody but Linda Godfrey and Chad. Chad Lewis. I've tried booking Chad Lewis. He's just always busy. But, you know, I've had everybody. I met everybody, got to spend time with them. And that's why I like the small events. You went to this event. You got to meet everybody that was there. Did you enjoy that part of it?
I like smaller events because if I'm being honest, I'm not a real big fan of large groups of people. But I do. I enjoy the smaller events because you get more time one-on-one to talk to people. Mm-hmm. You know, I've done events like Michigan Paracon where there's thousands of people walking around. You know, and you know, Tim Ellis and Brad Blair, the guys that run that, really good friends of mine. And the thing that doesn't get publicized about that event is that after the event is done, they literally donate thousands of dollars to nonprofits in the area. That's a part of it that people don't see. They just see the ticket prices and all the people that are coming to the event. So they do great work too, and they've been great friends of Autographs for Pooches and supporters, and you know, I love those guys like they're my brothers. So I've experienced, you know, the really, really busy events, and then you experience the events that aren't so busy, and they're both special in their own way. And like I said, in Missouri, there's going to be somebody here that's going to need to hear this story, and that's why I'm here. And if I can have an effect on somebody's life, just one or two people, then Murray and I have done our job.
Well, you've done an excellent job of bringing attention to Murray, potographs for pooches, and the animal shelters in the areas. So that just, you can just sit up a little bit straighter than all of us because you've done your part.
Yeah, I'm just me. A little bit here, I'm going to go sit on the couch with the dogs and watch probably wrestling and just enjoy my evening. I'm just a normal guy, and I get to do some wonderful things, and I really have some great opportunities. But at the end of the day, I'm just Tim. And when I look in the mirror, that's all I see. And that's, if people want to say I'm special for some reason, I'll let them say that. That's not for me to beat my chest.
No, but your time is very important, and that's one of the things that you've put into this. That be proud of yourself at least for 5 minutes. Because
Right.
you've done a good job. So, I wanted to ask you a question about your residentials.
Yeah.
So, what has been the most unusual thing that somebody has reported to you that they were having happen in their residential?
I instantly think of. I think I skipped this story in Missouri. I had a lady that contacted me that was sure there was a ghost that was looking out her bedroom window at her when she was outside and masturbating. That was the oddest one. She sent me a photo with the dreaded red circles.
Hula hoops.
Yeah, I told that story at the Wisconsin event, and Todd was speaking with me, and I put the picture up on the screen, and it got to the point where she circled what she thought was the penis, and I said the word, and this young lady in the back row stood up to get a better look. I was like, "Don't worry, it's not a real penis." And she turned
was Stephanie O'Reilly there?
No, I just recently met Stephanie on Facebook. We just became friends.
Oh, okay. Well, enjoy the pictures.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to her. I haven't talked to her at all, so I don't really know anything about her. But
you will quickly.
The name is familiar, but
yeah.
Yeah, Ron just said she's pretty cool.
Yeah,
nice lady.
So, but yeah, Ron's going to come in here in a few minutes so that you guys will he'll get to ask some questions. Of course, they might be old questions by then, but
Yeah. April's back in the chat room there, and she said, "Where in Wisconsin again are you located?"
it's called city called Oshkosh. It's about a little under an hour south of Green Bay.
Right.
In April, there's an event this weekend up there, and
they let her out?
Tim said if you send him a message, he'll send you back the information on that event.
Right.
Okay. So it's not too far from you.
Really?
So,
And Brandon wants to know about your apple butter.
we got it. My house still smells like apple butter. So, I probably need to make more. I don't think 9 jars is enough.
No.
So, okay. So we talked about residentials. What about some of these public places you've gone? What has been one of the stories that you heard that actually coincided with your evidence?
I do very little public investigation, and when I do, I rarely have a recorder with me because there's usually 10 people with me, and it's pointless. So I'm not a huge fan of public investigations, but I will say this about the times I've done investigations. there's always a legend at every place. There's always a room that you shouldn't go in. There's always a spirit that hangs out in a room where people just won't go in there by themselves. And I'm the guy that goes in there. And I'm the one that sits in there and says, you know what? There's people talking a lot of shit about you. And I would like to know the story from you. Now, someday that may backfire on me because I might actually walk into a place that's not very good. But it hasn't yet. And I will always be the guy that just goes in and wants to talk to them and give them a chance to tell their story instead of being chastised by the people that come in. One story that does stick out, I did an event at Ashmore Estates earlier this year. And in the basement, they always talk about this maintenance guy who's grumpy and he hates everybody. He doesn't want them in the building.
Been scratched down there.
So the first rotation, what we did is we talked to the guy and we asked him what his name was so we could call him by his name. And I can't remember what he told Scotty Rourke at the time. But he also told us he didn't want to talk. And we respected that. And after a while, Scotty was like, okay, so he's willing to talk now. And we had a conversation through Scotty. And he was actually cordial with us. We switched up groups, and the next group came down. And the first words out of this lady's mouth were "This is where the asshole is." And we didn't get anything that rotation because he was just done. It was, like I said earlier, just treat people like you want to be treated. Treat the same way. I'm sorry you got scratched in the basement. That wasn't my experience there.
Yeah.
But
they said that the spirit didn't like women being in that area because it was a men's area.
Right.
And I got paid back for that scratch 100 times over because we stayed at the hotel we stayed at that time was the the sleep suites or something right there by Mattoon.
Oh, Sweet Dreams.
Sweet Dreams that has 200% humidity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
I stayed there for the Silicon event this year. Yeah, it's
so I breathed in all this.
It's a damp and dingy hotel.
Yes, I breathed in all that moist air, and then we went to Ashmore Estates, and a month later, I'm in the hospital with a collapsed lung.
Right.
Oh.
So me and Ashmore Estates, there is something keeping me from going there. Again, I've been there twice, and actually, we were supposed to be there when my lung collapsed. So when I was in the hospital, we were supposed to see Rick and David, and Darren, Caitlin. We were supposed to go out there and see all them and actually stop by the funeral of Jerome Minks, who died from McPike Mansion at the same time. And nope, I decided I had to go to the hospital instead.
Yep.
I wanted my lung back, I guess. But yeah, every time we've been invited back to Ashmore, something has happened that's kept us from going. So there's something there that just doesn't want me there. And Gary asks, have you ever investigated a cemetery?
This is where I get opinionated.
Okay.
I mentioned that my dad passed away when I was young. It would really irritate me if somebody was standing at my dad's grave demanding that he should talk to them. So for that reason, I just don't go into cemeteries. I just have never had a need or a want to, not to do paranormal investigation. Like cemeteries in their own right are beautiful. There's some great artwork. But I'm just not one of those guys that goes in and says, you know what, this person passed away and they're just going to hang out at their grave and wait for me to talk to them. I can't remember the last time I was at my dad's grave. And it's not because I'm a bad son. It's because I talked to him here.
Right.
You know, I think my belief is that if I need to talk to my dad, I can just talk to him. You know, I don't need to go to a place. And they've built like a golf course and a subdivision around this. So he's basically in somebody's backyard the last time I was there.
Maybe he's enjoying it, watching the kids play.
But if I need to talk to my dad, I just do it here. And if I want to talk to somebody of the past, I just, for people that do investigate cemeteries, that that's good. That's your deal. I'm not telling you can't. It's just not for
Right.
me.
Well, we investigate ours because of what people have seen out there. Soldiers on horseback. We live in a rural community, and the Indians were our cemetery is right in the area of the big Mormon War zone they had in Missouri. So a lot of fighting and everything. And then just recently, okay, you're from Wisconsin. You knew about the Dimmel brothers murder.
I
The big cattle farmers up
I
there.
honestly don't.
Well, anyway, they were murdered 3 miles away from our cemetery
Oh,
down here. And he just pled guilty the other day to it finally. And
okay.
everything, got 2 life sentences for it. But yeah, I mean, even the sheriff's department, they don't go out there to the cemetery anymore because they've seen soldiers on horseback. So it's interesting what we do down there.
Yeah. I mean,
And he left out some of his family's buried there too.
Yeah, my great grandfather started that cemetery. Man, I never met. So it's interesting.
But I can see your point too. If this is
I
where
can
there's
too. I'm not going to go to Kansas City and walk into one of their big cemeteries. That would be disrespectful.
I will tell
In
you,
my
I
opinion.
like walking through cemeteries and hearing or seeing the stories of the people buried there. For instance, Cherryvale, when we went down there was a spirit. I was in near the front of the graveyard. There was a spirit that wanted to talk. She was talking to me and led me to her grave. And the story was amazing. She had died and they were planning her funeral, and a couple days later her daughter died, and her daughter was a baby, and they buried the baby in her mother's arms. And somehow, some way, this spirit told me this whole story. And the only thing I kept seeing was that this baby was on the mother, and I didn't know why I was seeing this. And somebody there, she goes, I didn't have internet down there or anything like that. So they pull up Find a Grave, and they go, oh my God, this is the story that goes along with this grave. I didn't know where I was going. It's just I was being led to this grave site. And it was an amazing story to give to people. And then to find out that I was right was even better. But it was a sad story. But in the end, she ended up telling me that her husband remarried, and he was buried down from her. And she goes, I don't want you to go talk to him. And I was like, I'm going to go talk to him to see what he has to say. But he was buried next to his new wife, and basically abandoned his old wife. so that she was having a pissing match with her dead husband. so it was funny, to say the least, but it was still sad, because that's not normal for somebody to bury their baby with them. Some other graveyards that are interesting to check out are like the Dill Cemetery in Eastern Kentucky, where the Hatfields and McCoys are buried almost right next to each other. How's that for a weird one?
Yeah.
And just walking up there, you're walking up a hill that's like this. It's stairs going up the hill. I don't know how they get the caskets up there. They have to do it by helicopter or something, because I guarantee the pallbearers go, Dill? Oh no, I'm busy that day. I know nobody wants to carry a casket upstairs that straight. But there are benches along the way to sit.
Right.
So some cemeteries, like I said, are have interesting stories, and I think it's good to pay homage to the people that are there. But I agree with the not disturbing them if that's not what they want. So
Now, have you done a lot of investigations at the so-called big places that hold the investigations?
No, hardly any. If I get invited to an event, we do the investigation. There have been times I've been included. The one I've been to the most is Hinsdale House, but again, that's a house. So for me, we go there, we investigate, and we try to get what we can, and also along the way try to help the spirit. But yeah, I've been to Mansfield Reformatory, and beautiful building. Didn't like it because there was way too many people there. But yeah, I've always steered clear of the big places. I've probably missed out on a lot of opportunities and a lot of experiences, but for me, it's always been about the residential cases.
But yeah, I know. We've been to, let's see, Ashmore, Melbourne, Sally House, an old abandoned hospital in downtown Kansas City and stuff, different things like that. Our courthouse, the old jail, just different places like that. And we've done several residential investigations up here. But now, when we go out to the cemetery, it's so peaceful and quiet. That's one of the reasons I like going out there and just sit with the tape recorder and listen. But now, how many people are on your team?
We've got 11 at this point. And the reason we carry so many people in the team is I may get a call today that we need to be somewhere Saturday. And I want to be able to make sure that we have 3 or 4 people that are available.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the reason for the size of the team. We never take all 11 on an investigation. The only time we really get all 11 together is when we do a party at the end of the year in the holidays. And even then, we don't get everybody there. But it's always been important to me to have that availability where if a family needs us, we don't have to turn them away.
Now, are all your team members within an hour drive of you, basically?
We're all over the place. The furthest away is about 3 hours. But she still makes the investigations that she can. The rest of us are all in the Fox Valley area. So, yeah, an hour away is probably the furthest away.
Well, that's kind of like when we was doing the tours up there with Denise and Ron at Sally House when that group from California was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady showed up first and says, I'm supposed to be here with them. Well, how'd you get here earlier? Well, I came from England. I went,
Yeah.
What?
English accent.
Yeah. Well, she was living over there and moving back again and stuff. But she flew in from England to
And they
actually.
were from San Diego.
yep.
And the others were from San Diego, flew in.
Yeah.
I was like, boy, did we reach out a long ways on this one to come in. So, Denise and Ron, you froze up. Okay, you're back. Nope.
Oh, I know I am.
Yeah, okay, you're back now. You was froze there for a second.
Yeah, so did you guys, and I don't know
Oh.
why.
Yeah.
Mm.
You froze first, and then Tim, and then us.
It happens on all the paranormal shows we have over here on the Billerites Network.
Last night was really the first time that I had a freeze up, but
See
like I
that?
said, I lost my VPN
Gary.
last night.
I have a picture of a tailless coon at the portal.
I bet that does look strange.
Yeah, I bet it does. You'll probably see that picture this weekend because I'm sure he blew it up to bring down.
Oh, I bet so. So, the same question we asked earlier. I'm sorry to ask it again, but how active is Wisconsin since we just moved here?
Well, we've done 300 residential investigations in 15 years, so that'll tell you a little bit about how active it is. There's very few public places that I've been to here. If you're looking for public investigations, I could probably point you towards a few. I don't really do a whole lot of them, but they're run by other teams in the area. The number of places here to investigate, as far as like public investigations, is a lot smaller than other states. There are definitely more opportunities in states such as like Michigan or even Missouri that I found out. But it's for me, like it's always been about residential investigations, but there's probably 4 or 5 that I could point you towards. First Ward Schoolhouse is the one that's the biggest one for me. That's in Wisconsin Rapids. They're not allowed to do public investigations right now. They're in a battle with the city about whether they can do them. But there are other places. There's a team that runs tours at Sheboygan Asylum, and that was on the show with Amy and Adam this year. I can't remember the name of the show. Kindred Spirits. So there are a few places. You just have to look for them. And then, of course, there's Four Seasons Island Resort in Pembine, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I haven't seen any Kindred Spirits this year, so.
I haven't either. I watch very little paranormal television. If I show up to an event and somebody says, "Hey, they're from this show," I'm like, "That's great for them."
Right now I'm excited about a show that's going to be coming out as 28 Days Haunted, but that's only because I know all the people in it. You know, Sean Austin, Aaron Thompson, and Nick Simons, and they're friends up in Iowa that played Cards Against Humanity with them. So we know way more than we should.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the 28 Days Haunted also. I've become very good friends with Shane Pittman.
Yeah, Shane is
actually had him up here for an event, and we had an hour and a half drive from the airport, and he was telling me all about the show, but he couldn't tell me the name of it because it hadn't been announced yet.
Yeah.
He was telling me about the premise of the show and how excited he was about it, and then I finally found out what the name was.
I didn't know Shane was in that, and I interviewed him as well, and then Brandy Marie is in it, so it's going to be interesting to see everybody in the show. And then of course we've been watching, Ghost of Devil's Perch. I mean,
Ghost of Devil's Perch with Katie Stafford, Dave Schrader, and
Cindy
Casa. Yeah.
And we're going to the finale party on Sunday.
Yeah, after we get done with the convention in Joplin, we come up and Sunday we go up north or south of St. Joe to a restaurant there for the final premiere of Ghosts of Devil's Perch with KD, and KD will be there and others.
Cool.
So, and I hope. Yeah. So it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, you met Katie down there at Richmond
and
everything. Her husband, KD, he's the one that builds all kinds of equipment, builds this stuff and different things. But yeah, he's a mad scientist.
So does that make me an equipment builder if I make dowsing rods?
Well, I make them too.
I'm kidding.
Hey, I make dowsing rods.
I was gonna make REM pods. I didn't know how much demand I'd have.
I don't think you see very much.
I don't see a lot of people using them that much.
No, not anymore. I don't know why, but
no, I don't either.
Use them.
I like the proximity sensor.
I mean, they're pretty easy to make. But... let's resell cat toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, sell the cat balls.
Run to Amazon and get yourself a 20-pack of cat balls.
Yeah, the cat
put
balls.
Them on there. Ghost hunting equipment for $10 a piece.
And we can put it with your penis picture.
You might want to tell Ron what that's about. Otherwise, that
I caught the tail end of
Yeah,
that.
he
one.
caught
But I heard Stephanie and penis, and I was like, that's all I need to know.
No, the two were not interchangeable.
So if you go to McIntyre Villa,
Oh, yeah.
don't be surprised if any penis paraphernalia
Surprised the
you
neighbors
come
haven't
across
said
with
something about
come
it.
across there. I don't think the neighbors are far enough away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
She
pretty,
doesn't live there, but
yeah, it's pretty much her own block, that
Yeah.
13th and Kansas. So, I mean, what are the odds of your house being on 13th Street being haunted? You know? So, but yeah, so if you ever get to Atchison, just go to 13th and Kansas and you'll find the McIntyre Villa. So, but yeah, we used to talk about it a lot during the tours that we used to do out there at the Sally House and stuff. But
it's a neat house.
it's beautiful. So if you ever get a chance to go,
More active than I thought it was.
well, because when we were doing tours, they stuck to one story about the house and that was it. Goldie messing with people's hair and or a light on in a spot where they said there was no electricity, but there's electricity in that spot, which we didn't know when we were on the trolley because of the fact that we weren't allowed in the house. They never had any, they would let people in there maybe once every couple years.
But we were in there with Richard and Joe. They didn't even take us down the basement. They didn't even mention the basement or anything. That's pretty active down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went through the whole house.
We were there a while.
Yeah, we were
Couple
there.
Hours.
Actually, we were there 4.5.
Were we really?
Yeah, we were there 4.5 hours, and I kept hearing. It was the longest time I had to stay quiet. 4.5 hours. Wasn't allowed to say a damn word.
That was hard for you.
It was because it's like
That's impossible.
Because
I was there, and I don't believe it.
and I went over to him and I go, hey, there's somebody running up and down the stairs, the back stairs, and from the attic
It
down
did sound
to
like somebody was running up. I thought somebody actually was.
there was nobody there.
He had his film crew there, and I didn't know.
Yeah, we were
Thought
all
somebody might be out there.
Yeah, we were all in the front bedrooms at the time. We were in the hallway, and everybody else was in the bedrooms. And because we weren't supposed to be on camera, we stayed in the hallway. And the owners at the time, the Garrity's, the brother and the sister were with us in the hallway, and the other brother was on camera. But I will say the biggest thing I miss about the McIntyre Villa is the paper mache pumpkins and gargoyles and stuff that he used to make and put out there. They were weatherproof. I probably do have
Somewhere.
some pictures from when we did.
Oh
tours
yeah,
and stuff.
I know. I took some
Now they got skeletons all over the front yard.
with penises.
Well, the skeleton horse does definitely have one, and I don't know why. I guess it's a stallion, making sure we know that.
I guess.
You never thought this interview would go this way, right? So
Well, we call it not so normal.
okay, so I'm gonna let you. You know what? Why don't we play our little commercial for the event this weekend, so that we can all get a drink?
Okay.
Okay.
Let me get this set up here. Background will change here a little bit. Okay, come on. Ooh, there we go. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. Brandon here, host of Shaman Sundays. Join me every Sunday as we discuss everything from the paranormal to self healing. We'll sprinkle in a couple of fun guests along the way. Show airs 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central every Sunday, right here on the Bill of Rights Network. #born. Join me, won't you?
Well, Ron, I guess it's you and me for a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, sorry I'm late. I got home late and went for my walk, and I got tutued.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Tutued is a elderly woman that hangs out over at the lake, and yeah, once you get stopped, you're there a while.
You're there and she don't stop talking.
Tutued.
Yeah, I can
tutued.
imagine.
Oh,
I hadn't seen her in a little while, and she said, I haven't seen you in a while. And it's like, well, we were all sick for about a week. And of course, I got to hear all her old stories again.
Right. Right.
But
so, waiting for Tim to turn his camera on, then we'll bring him back up. Oh, there he is. Okay. But
so anybody who watched that commercial is wondering about the event. I'm going to give you a couple heads ups. Josh Hurd and Justin Spurrier have prior engagements that came up. You all know family comes before everything else, or your home location comes before something else that comes up. And speaker schedule has been posted on the site. Haunting History Facebook page, event page, if you want to see that. Speaker number 1 at 1 p.m. on Friday is going to be me and my heckler Ron. And then second will be David Glidden. So it'll be fun. I think it'll just be fun anyway, regardless. So
it's going to be an interesting show. Convention down there, because
I've waited for this for 2 years.
It's been 2 years in the building.
And I've never heard Russell Shreve sing or perform, so I don't even know what kind of music he does, but you know what? We'll find out.
And I'll get to meet some new people down there.
Yep, you'll get to meet Susan and Mike.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. And
you'll get to. Have you met Cassie?
Not in person.
She used to come to the Sally house a lot, so I thought maybe you had.
Might had, but I don't remember.
You haven't met Susan and Mike, have you?
No.
I was going to say they were supposed to come up to Malvern. They got sick.
Yeah, they got COVID. Yep. They had stomach flu.
We got that. Most of the speakers down there, I know.
You've never met.
There was something else.
You've never met Aaron either, right? Aaron Thompson. Eck? No, Aaron Thompson.
No.
He's going to be there. He's filling in because we had another speaker cancel, so Aaron Thompson will be there. Hopefully Rick Park still comes and we can hear about true ghost stories.
Right.
On Facet TV.
Hang on it.
So please
don't. Do you know if Steve Hayes is going to be down there?
I don't think so. So I asked him, and yeah, we have our own sound.
There's effect. Your own ghost scream right there.
Yeah. Reese's cups help.
Yes.
Everything. So, but yeah, it's going to be a fun event. We got lots of people coming that, I think I know everybody that's supposed to be there. So,
and I think we're supposed to go maybe get to check out the spook lights down there.
Yep, the Hornet spook lights. And because Susan and Mike said they'd take us out there.
Yeah, because they go out there all the time, she said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't live too far. They live near Springfield, Missouri. So,
good.
Yep. So yeah, because I don't think that we've been asked to do the investigation.
You need another one?
No, I need to.
He needs two.
Let's see. Richmond, before that, the last Paracon I went to before that was
it yours?
it was ours, and then also the next one after that was Big River, where that one was supposed to be at originally, and stuff went out to that, and then the KC Paracons.
Yeah.
Grandpa,
Those
Yep.
are good.
I'm just glad I got you to go to the Big River one for us. Otherwise, it'd have been us. So I gave Carl tickets to an event that I was invited to.
Well, you was out of town.
Well,
Yeah.
no, we had just gotten back.
Oh,
We
just
were-
got yeah.
Yeah, we had just gotten back from Vegas and drove all the way, and another hour and a half was too much.
And that was really interesting because, of course, I hung out with David Glidden down there, but that's where I met KD Stafford at down there. And then Saturday morning, got up after camping, went up there to the chuck wagon to get breakfast. I'm sitting there eating breakfast, and this big SUV pulls out, and it's the Kling brothers. Them boys are big. So they came over to the table, and we sat and talked for about an hour. That was really interesting.
Okay, I know that you're friends, Tim. I know that you're friends with. Let me get the name right. I just had a brain fart. Did you guys all see that?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to use the wrong name. And all Braxton Roan. How did you meet Braxton? I have a story about how I met her or him. She was Selena then. I'm sorry, but
I met Braxton in I don't remember what year it was, 2016.
because I know that you've been friends with with him a while. So
Yeah,
sorry.
I met him in at SilCon in Mattoon, Illinois, and then I did an event with him and April the following spring in Tampa. So we've known each other for probably 6 years or so.
I met Braxton in Carthage, Missouri, at the what was the name of the house? The Kendrick House.
Kendrick House, yeah.
And
I never remember that name. I know it starts with a K, but
yeah, it just doesn't. It just doesn't.
I call
roll
it
off
the
your tongue.
Carthage House for some reason.
Yeah, and we had just such a
Yeah, it
great
was
time. We had so much fun, and it was right when she met April. He met April.
Yep.
God
I
damn.
need more.
You need more.
Yes.
Oh my
You know,
gosh,
sometimes
you
it's hard
need
to break
more. Where'd they go?
An experience
Where did they
from
go
a
at?
person
Did they go in here?
when you know somebody through two
Did you
different
wanna
parts
eat
of their
your,
life.
Peanut butter and jelly?
So I have another friend that
Your grandma's
got abducted,
grandkid.
and I've always known her as her, but knew something. You know, she'd told us about her life before.
This one.
So it's just one of those hard things sometimes for me.
Now, saying that, you're up in Wisconsin. Do you go on any of the cryptids or Bigfoot hunts up there?
I don't. I actually have zero interest in that stuff. I honestly, I said it over the weekend when I was talking to DA when we were in Missouri. Like, I respect the work he does, but I've never thought to myself, let's go find this 8-foot creature that's probably going to want to tear my face off. That'll be fun.
So who were you talking to
Good
in
boy.
Missouri? What was the name?
DA Roberts.
Yeah, I don't know him. I talked to
Nice guy. Nice guy. Has wonderful stories about what he does. I just,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where, it's not for me, but that doesn't mean it can't be for other people. So
Exactly.
I respect what he does, and I did go sit around the fire and experience his stories and the things that he talked about. But at the end of the day, I have zero interest in going out into the forest and finding something that wants to kill me.
that's my question.
The odds of finding anything are not very good anyway, and
the odds of finding
get
Bigfoot.
bored.
Yeah, the odds of finding Bigfoot aren't very good, but there's also bears and mountain lions and
Right.
whatever else you got to run into.
Right.
Also. So
There's always something out there that's going to eat you.
Yeah, I'm good where I am.
You never know if there's
Yeah,
a
there's-
moonshiner out there that might be pissed that you found their still site.
Yeah.
You just don't know. But yeah, that's always a question that I have. Should I be afraid of Bigfoot, or should I just go, oh, I left him an apple, he'll be fine? And
It's
If it's 800 pounds, an apple's just going to be an appetizer.
I know, but gifting is supposed to save your life. Remember when I was talking to Jay?
Mhm.
Jay's up there by Bray Road, as Jay Bachochin, and I've interviewed him a couple times, and I always have the same question. In fact, Carter Bouchard, who lives here up in Liberty, is going to be at David's conference, and I asked him the same thing: should I be afraid? And I told him about something that I saw here, and I don't believe in Bigfoot. I just don't.
I don't know what you saw. That didn't sound like Bigfoot. It
No.
sounded like something.
He said that it's something related to this Native American tribe that's around
Right.
here, that used to be around here, because there has been Native American tribes known in our area since the 1500s. There's actually Paola, Kansas was the home of the 5 tribes. And that's where they would go and meet and have their meetings and all that stuff. And so it's all documented, which is unusual for this part of the country to have that much documentation on Native Americans, but they have quite a bit. And he said whatever I saw sounded like it was related to that. And I'm like, okay. But still, should I be afraid that there's something out there that's going to eat me? And considering that I saw this by my daughter, going to my daughter's farm, really, should I tell her to be scared?
Well, they've seen some stuff out there they can't explain.
Yeah, some Native Americans they've seen out there, and they think that they may have seen some shifters of some sort.
That's what it sounded like.
I don't know. So have you ever had any encounter with something other than a spirit?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I mean, what's the saying? I stay in my lane.
Okay.
I talk about what I know, and I don't even have enough experience for Bigfoots to even have a intelligent opinion about it. But I just know it's not for me. I don't like going in the woods anyway in Wisconsin. So the thought of going into the woods in Missouri when you add in like big cats and things really was not appealing to me.
Well, we do have lynx down here,
Yeah.
and we do have a mountain
The
lion.
lynx ain't gonna bother you.
Yeah, but the mountain lion would.
Mountain lion.
Well, we're getting black bears up here
Black
now.
bears, yeah.
Well, we're not too far from.
Black bears usually don't mess with you.
Right. But when I climb up in my tree stand to deer hunt, years ago, I didn't have to look up in the tree to see what was
Right.
in there with me.
Yeah.
Nowadays, when I'm climbing up, that flashlight is looking up in every limb. Because the cats like sleeping on a limb, bears like up there. Who else is going to be up there?
Well, maybe somebody who doesn't want you to have a good time.
Yeah.
So,
Knock him down, John.
isn't that from?
Jerry Clower.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
You don't want to know. If you haven't heard Jerry Clower, then
You need to.
you need to look it up.
Right.
Knock him down, John. Just look it up, and you'll see it, and laugh your ass off.
Oh, he's hilarious.
Before Ron's dad died, I played him something on my phone, and Ron's dad was already
Coon hunting story.
his dad was already out of it. Okay, so he was just in the last hours of his life. I played this story, and his feet started. He was trying to tell us the punchline
Yeah.
because his dad would start laughing before he got to the punchline and couldn't ever get it out, and so his feet started moving, and that was so we knew that he enjoyed.
Yeah,
that
they would
last
play that
story.
on the radio, and we'd stop whatever we were doing to listen. Knock him down, John.
But
Like I said, you'll have to check that out. So, we've got about 15 minutes left.
yeah,
So we probably need to wrap it up. If you guys have any questions at all for Tim, please put the questions in the
yeah,
chat.
and put them in the comments there.
And
as we're winding
if-
down.
And if we miss your questions, we will get them answered later on if
We
you
can
have
send them to him.
So, you've already talked about your events that you've got coming up, and we've talked about the fact that you've more than met a wonderful goal for Potographs for Pooches. What is your next goal for Potograph for Pooches? 200,000?
Honestly, that's what I've been struggling with here for a couple of weeks. I don't know. It's like you hit 100,000 and like a big part of me just wants to take the foot off the gas for a while and just enjoy life and relax.
Okay.
But the offers keep coming in and I have a hard time telling people no.
Yeah.
Well, when it's for a good cause, no doesn't seem like the right answer.
Well, it does when your mental health struggles.
Yeah. You need to take care of you first, of course.
I go through those issues, and I always tell people that I can't help others unless I help myself first. So I mean, it's the best way I can describe events for me they're emotionally exhausting, and it takes me forever. It takes me forever to kind of rebound from an event. I go to an event and you won't hear from me for like 2 or 3 days, and then the next event is the next week, and you multiply that by 4 out of 5, and by the end of the 5th, my brain is mush. And hitting 100,000 took a lot out of me. I know it sounds like, oh, you poor thing, you've done this incredible thing and now you're tired, but emotionally it was just exhausting. And like earlier, I haven't hit that point yet where I've had the breakdown, but I know I need it. I just haven't had it yet. And then the next week I ended up in Missouri for the event, Fall into the Supernatural, and had a great time. Then the 9-hour drive home, and I'm thinking to myself, how many more times do I want to do this? Like I said, I've got the event this week, and that's strictly paranormal. There's no Potographs involved with that one, and then I'm off till March, and I'm okay with that. I really am. And I think I've got 11 or 12 events already for next year, so that I'm pretty much full.
Well, then you know what? Then you need to take these 5 months that you've got and enjoy them for you and your puppies.
Yeah, Ray and Daisy have spent a lot of time at Grandma and Grandpa's lately, so I'm looking forward to just being with them and hanging out and relaxing.
Well, I just wish the best for you, as I always do. You're always in my prayers, because I know that you struggle with mental health, but you know what? We all do.
Right.
And I don't know if people realize that we all have something that affects our mental health, whether it's taking care of your grandchildren 24/7, or just thinking about the fact that your job sucks. I mean, there's always something that is eating at our brain that's keeping us from being 100%. So I just want you to be 100% at whatever it is you're going to do.
And I will be eventually. What people don't understand when I do the lectures and I do the shows and stuff, I'm very open about what I've gone through, but each and every time that I talk about it, I have to relive it.
Right.
And that's what really takes a lot out of me. But I continue to do it because I know it's going to help somebody. I mean, that's why. But yeah, I mean, the event in Missouri, I connected with people that I needed to connect with, and created lifelong friendships. And it was definitely worth being there. It was a good event for me. It was a good event for the people that were there. But there's got to be a balance. And I didn't realize that early on when I was doing paranormal investigations and events and stuff. Somebody once told me that, like, you can't make the dead your life. And what they meant by that is you have to have some balance and create your own memories, not be a part of everybody else's. So I'm trying to do more of that. And, I'm able to do that. Honestly, when I don't have an event, you'll find me on my couch watching sports. And that's kind of where my brain just kind of zones out and I relax. And life is good.
So is your team doing good this year?
I'm a Brewer fan, so I really hate the Cardinals. But I guess, once in a while you guys got to do well. So,
and how about your football team?
My football team's the Green Bay Packers. It has been since I was a little boy.
Oh, yeah.
I know. We've talked about that before.
I've been pretty spoiled since the early 90s. I mean, we've been really good for over 30 years and only managed to get 2 Super Bowls out of 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. But
I know that's unbelievable.
But you know what? It's I enjoy it. I'm not a Badger fan. I'm a Michigan Wolverine fan. Have been since
Really?
I was a kid.
I was going to ask you, who are you looking at as far as your head coach for Wisconsin? But
No,
I guess you don't care.
that's not me. If you look behind my head here, that's Michigan Stadium hanging on my office.
Oh, okay.
And then the autographs photos. But yeah, I've growing up, Wisconsin was very bad when I was a small child.
Right.
So bad that they were on tape delay on public access TV or public television.
Yeah.
And then they got good in the early, I guess, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And then the whole state was like, oh, we've loved the Badgers all along. And I was like, you are a bunch of liars.
Bunch of Rubber fans.
Yeah, the stadium was empty. They were on at 10:30 at night and nobody cared. And then they got good and it was like, oh my God, this has been my team forever. And by then I had been following Michigan and that's just the team I stuck with. And
yeah,
it paid off for me last year. We had a playoff appearance and then we're looking okay this year. And we'll see. I can't believe I said we. I'm never the guy that says we. Michigan is looking good this year. I'm not on the team.
They do. I think they might actually be better this year than they were last year, even though they lost a few people to the NFL, but
they lost a lot on defense.
Yeah,
and if you watch a game, that shows. I mean, they're still good on defense. They don't have a bad last year.
They to me they look like they're getting better each week. I'm watching the games and I'm
Yeah, they still have they still have Penn State and Ohio State on the schedule.
Right.
So, they got to get better.
Right.
Yeah, they do.
So Tim, I know that you're probably getting hungry for some dinner. Where can everybody find you?
I've got like 30 spots open on my Facebook friend list.
Okay.
But if you go to Photographs for Pooches, you can get in touch with me there. My email's there. Fox City's Paranormal Team, you can find me there. I do a little bit on TikTok, and that's a different side of me. I just like to make people laugh over there. I'm pretty stupid and pretty silly. But you can find me over there. My handle is Murray's Dad 425. And that's about it. I used to do a lot on Facebook, and I've kind of backed off just because it's nice to just, sometimes I just need to disconnect. And I'm in the middle of that after this weekend. That's when I'll disconnect from everything and kind of just chill out and
relax and kick back.
Yeah. And then by the time March comes along next year, I'll be ready. I'll be recharged, and we'll hit as many events as we can. And we even have a golf tournament now. This will be the third year where we have the Murray Open, and we raised some money at a golf scramble for the local shelter. So a lot of doors opening up for Murray and for Photographs, and just like I said earlier in the show, incredibly proud of the things that we're able to do, and thankful for the people that support us.
I can't find what I was wanting to post. I was wanting to post your links, but I'll post them later. Make sure that everybody gets to see those. So, but I'd like to thank you so much for telling your story again.
Right.
And I know how much I know it's cathartic, but it's also painful for you. And but I do agree that it's one of those stories that people need to hear. That we will survive. You know, there's always somebody who wants us to be here.
Yeah.
And in your case, it was Murray. So
Right.
And in my case, it still is him. I still live every day for him because I made a promise, and I never lied to my boy. So I'm not about to start now.
Right.
well, like I said, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with our listeners. And you're welcome back anytime that you want to talk about an event or something. You know, you don't have to stay on for a whole 2 hours next time.
Thanks for having me, though. I appreciate the time and being able to tell the story.
Well, thank you so much. And, you know, everybody, you know, you can find me every Tuesday night here on the show with Carl on Paranormal Radio, blah, 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 blah.
Paranormal Nation Radio, not so normal.
Yeah, I can't say it today. And next week, our guest is, I sent it to you, Carl.
I know.
You should have
On
it written
Facebook.
down.
Let me look.
Actually, it's on my calendar.
Okay, you look it up.
I am. I live by my calendar, everybody.
Next week is Dave Spinks.
Oh, yeah, Dave Spinks. You guys are going to love Dave Spinks. He is a retired police officer and retired military, and he was on lots and lots of shows. He talks about Bigfoot, Mothman, aliens. He's got a supernatural shop in West Virginia. You guys are going to love it. Maybe he'll show us around the shop because he has shown me around it off the air of a show, because my previous show was, of course, it was just radio. This way, with it being video, you guys might be able to see some of his curiosity shop.
Right.
And then on Monday, you can find me right here, as well as on the Paranormal Pride pages. And my guest on Monday is author Karen Lavin. She lives up in north central Kentucky, up by Ohio, and we'll be talking to her. She'll be returning to the Paranormal Pride. So I think we're all going to have a great week with that. Carl, you want to tell everybody about everything else going on?
Check out the Bill of Rights Network. You'll find a list of all our shows. They're run at the bottom, but on that Facebook page, you'll find the list. Also, check out Things Network, where we're live and part of tonight, and the Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment Facebook page that we're live on tonight. Paranormal Nation Radio, Not So Normal, is always live on Things Network and the Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment page. So check out all them. Other than that, I haven't got much to say. Oh, stay tuned right after this show at 8 p.m., The Conservative View. We have a lot of guests on there tonight on The Conservative View. So check that out. But other than that, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, we got to save something to talk about at 8 o'clock.
I know we do.
On that tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, well, people, we're ending the show. Thank you for the people in the comments and everything. Without you, we don't have a show. And always tune in here Tuesday night at 5 p.m. Central for Paranormal Nation Radio, Not So Normal. We will see you next week. Have a good night.